All right, let's jump right in. We're diving deep into the world of cybersecurity today. We're going to talk about vulnerabilities, how they get found, and, maybe more importantly, how attackers actually use them to cause some real damage. So let's get into it.
So here's the big question we're tackling. I mean, think about it. All the software, all the hardware, all the networks you use every single day, they all have these potential cracks in the armor. Our goal here is to really understand what those cracks are and how someone could, actually break in.
So first things first, let's get on the same page. We're going to start with the absolute basics and define what we really mean when we say a digital weak spot, or as the pros call them, a vulnerability.
So what is a vulnerability, really? At its core, it's just a weakness. It's some kind of flaw in this system that a threat agent, which is just a fancy term for an attacker or a piece of malware, can take advantage of. The best analogy, it's like finding an unlocked window on the ground floor of your digital house.
And these weaknesses, they don't always come from some super complex, crazy coding mistake. You would be shocked how often they're just simple oversights. Things like leaving the default admin password on a new device, or rushing software to market without proper security checks. And, well, there's us, the human element, picking passwords like password123. It's really a mix of tech flaws and plain old human error.
Okay, so you've got millions of these flaws floating around out there. How on earth does anyone keep track of all this? Well, the security community realized they needed a way to organize the chaos, and that led to a few really important systems.
I mean, this is the huge problem, right? You can't possibly fix what you can't track. Imagine if everyone was just talking about that one bug in the web server. It would be total confusion. So the real question is, how do we give these flaws unique names, scores, and categories so we can all talk about the same thing?
And the solution is this. Well, it's kind of like an alphabet soup for managing vulnerabilities. First, you've got CVE, which gives every single known flaw a unique ID number. Think of it like a social security number for a bug. Then you have CVSS, which gives it a severity score from 0 to 10, so you know which fires to put out first. And finally, CWE, which actually categorizes the type of mistake, which helps developers, not make the same mistake over and over again.
And all these systems, they feed into this continuous process. It's called the vulnerability management lifecycle, and it's a constant loop. You find the problems, you fix the problems, and then, this is the important part, you check to make sure the fix actually worked and didn't break something else. And then you do it all over again because new vulnerabilities are being found literally all the time. Find, fix, verify, repeat.
All right, so we've covered what vulnerabilities are and how we try to manage them. Now let's flip the script. Let's look at this from the attacker's point of view. We're going to open up the attacker's playbook, and we'll start with a classic technique, network sniffing.
Sniffing is basically just eavesdropping on a network. Passive sniffing is the easy one. It's just quietly listening. This used to be super easy on old networks that worked like a telephone party line, where everybody could hear everybody else's conversation. But modern networks are way smarter, so attackers have to get active. They have to inject their own data into the network just to trick it into letting them listen in.
So why is this so scary? Well, it all comes down to this. A ton of older internet protocols that are still in use send data in plain text. So if an attacker is sniffing your connection when you log into a website using unencrypted HTTP or FTP, it is the digital equivalent of writing your username and password on a postcard and dropping it in the mail. Anybody who gets their hands on it along the way can just read it. But of course, attackers don't just sit back and listen. No, they get active. They have ways to actually poison the network, to manipulate its fundamental rules, and force all the traffic to come to them. This is where things get really, really sneaky.
Okay, check this out. A modern network switch, right? It has an address book that keeps track of which computer is plugged into which port. A Mac flooding attack basically just spams that address book with so many fake hardware addresses that its memory completely overflows. It gives up, and when it gets confused, the switch panics and just reverts to that old, dumb party line mode, blasting everyone's data out of every single port for the attacker to easily grab.
Another really powerful technique is something called ARP poisoning. So on a local network, your computer uses a protocol called ARP to ask a simple question. Hey, who has this specific IP address? An attacker using ARP poisoning basically just lies. They shout out false answers, telling everyone on the network, oh yeah, that IP address? That's me. Send all the data my way.
And the end result of all this lying? The attacker puts themselves right smack in the middle of your conversation with the internet. So your computer thinks it's talking directly to the router, but it's actually sending all of its data to the attacker first. This is the classic and very dangerous man-in-the-middle attack.
And this whole idea of poisoning the network's core services, it doesn't stop there. An attacker could set up a fake DHCP server to hand out bad network settings, which routes all your traffic through them. Or they could poison the DNS cache, that's the internet's phone book, to send you to a fake, malicious website even when you type the correct address into your browser. It's all about manipulating the network's trust.
Okay, that was a little terrifying, right? Looking at the attacker's toolkit. So for our last section, let's bring it all home. Because for every single attack we just looked at, there is a defense. And the only way to build that defense is to understand the offense first. This right here, this is the absolute key takeaway. Knowing about these attacks isn't just for fun. It's what drives all of real-world security. Remember that password on a postcard problem? That's why we now have HTTPS to encrypt all our web traffic. That Mac flooding attack that gives the switch amnesia, that's why network engineers use something called port security. All those poisoning attacks, they're countered by advanced features on modern network gear. You simply cannot protect a system if you don't understand all the creative ways someone might try to break it. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. The threat landscape is always changing. New attacks, new vulnerabilities every single day. So the real question isn't just how do we react to the attacks we saw today, it's how do we get ahead of the curve? Is it about building security in from day one, or constantly hunting for threats inside your own network? What does it truly mean to be proactive, not just reactive, when it comes to securing our digital lives? It's something to think about.